Hey, welcome everyone to the State of the Industry panel for 2025. This is actually the sixth year that the American Legal Technology Awards has been around, and we're so lucky to be here and to have such amazing leaders of the legal tech industry here to speak. I want to introduce Patrick Pallas, who is a dear friend of mine and also the owner of Pallas Law, and he's going to be moderating the panel today. The awards, by the way, is coming up on October 15th, so not too long from now, and we hope to see you there. Patrick?
All right. Well, thank you, Tom, and good morning to most, and good afternoon to a few. I'm Patrick Pallas, and on behalf of my good friend, Tom Martin, and also Kat Moon, my co-founders, welcome to the American Legal Technology Awards State of the Legal Industry webinar. We have such a great panel with us today, and I'm looking forward to introducing you to all of them in just a moment. But first, let me say this. I'm happy to tell you that our 30 amazing judges have poured through over 211 unique nominations for the American Legal Technology Awards to pick the top 3 nominees in each of our 10 categories. Those categories are access to justice, courts, AI, education, enterprise, individual journalism, law firm startup, and we have a Lifetime Achievement Award again this year. So our thanks to our judges and to all of you that brought these nominees to us. And also congratulations to our 3 finalists that have been chosen in each category. You can see them all at AmericanLegalTechnology.com finalists. And I encourage you to take a look to see who's on that list. We'll be announcing the winner in each category live at the American Legal Technology Awards Gala in Boston, Massachusetts, at the Suffolk Law School that is hosting us this year. That will occur the night before ClioCon, October 15 of 2025. So I'm overjoyed to tell you also this, we're sold out. We're sold out. Every year we get sold out, earlier and earlier. And this year we are sold out for the gala. Now I'll tell you, friends and family, I've told a couple of people, look, I think I could probably get you in. I know we're sold out. Tom's going to roll his eyes when I say this, but we might be able to fit in a person or two. If you really want to go to the gala, we encourage you to reach out to us. And maybe we can find a seat for you in Boston if you're there. If you want details, you can find out more at theamericanlegaltechnology.com. So today, we have a panel to discuss the state of the legal industry. And as all of you know, a lot has happened since we began this webinar 6 years ago. And indeed, a ton has happened just in this last year. We've all seen many changes in the legal industry and frankly, across the country. And there's a lot to talk about. And I've asked everyone on this panel to prepare their predictions for 2026. So we will get to that at the very end. Hold you in suspense till we get there. Let me introduce you to our panelists, and I'll give a brief bio for each. Joshua Lennon of Clio, Ann Casamano, General Counsel of ARA, Catherine Dawson, General Counsel of 8AM, formerly FinnaPay. And let me just do this for each of you for a moment. I know it's embarrassing to have someone go on and on about how amazing you are, but you all are, and I want to give you just a moment of opportunity. I'll first introduce you to Joshua Lennon, who's a lawyer in residence at Clio. Joshua, I tease him being employee number 6. I think he's actually something like 73. He corrects me every time, but he's been with Clio since the very beginning, is maybe in many ways the face of Clio. He talks a lot about lawyering at Clio, lawyer education, technology, and its capabilities. I'm very proud to have him as part of our panel again this year. We also welcome Ann Casamano of ARAG, who's their general counsel. She directs the company's legal, regulatory, compliance, and attorney relations department, but that's all, nothing else. She has a law degree from Creighton. She's done a ton of nonprofit work in the past. And even though I would tell you it's all about the amazing things she's accomplished one thing perhaps most amazing. She is now a nana to a beautiful 1-year-old granddaughter who she says can already win any negotiation with a smile. And I know she's very proud. We've talked a little about it off camera. And finally, Catherine Dawson, who is the Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel of 8AM, formerly of FinnaPay, for those of you who might be wondering. Catherine spent the first half of her career in big law firms and the second half as general counsel to technology companies. She has a BA in economics from Oberlin and her JD from NYU Law School. So welcome to each of you. Thank you for being here. Let me give you each a few minutes to have a conversation one-on-one. And Joshua, let me start with you. And let me just toss out maybe a direction to this. AI is changing the way law is being practiced. Tell me what that means from your lens.
Absolutely. Do you mind if I share my screen for a sec?
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. So I think, it's saying it's not turned on. So give me 1 second. There we go. I'm going to break protocol, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share a sneak preview of our latest legal trends report.
I always ask you to do that, and you always say you can't, but here we go.
I know. And the reason I'm doing this is because I think it does align really well with the question that you're asking, which is how AI is impacting the practice of law. And the answer is the AI is a continuation of a trend, but it's a continuation that I think may have unintended consequences. So thank you for having me. I'm Joshua Lennon, the lawyer in residence at Clio. I'm actually celebrating my 13th work anniversary right now at Clio. And not to be pedantic, but I am employee 83 at Clio. But I think I've made it into like the top 10 longest serving. So thanks, Patrick, for including that. And what I'm giving you a sneak preview is a look at our 10th annual edition of the Legal Trends Report. For those of you who don't know, Clio's been publishing a legal trends report every year for the last 10 years, providing data-driven insights into the practice of law. And honestly, I do feel it's the best report out there. And it's the best report. Wait, I'm sharing the wrong screen, aren't I? Let me reverse this real quick, gang. Is that better for everybody? Thank you. I think it's one of the best reports out there because we have a really incredible, diverse data set, which leads with tens of thousands of contributing legal professionals across North America, now actually out of 108 countries around the world, sending us aggregated, anonymized usage data. I really want to stress aggregated, anonymized. We do not see your files. We do not see any information around your clients. It's how you're using Clio. But that enables us to do some really amazing analysis that we supplement with interviews and surveys of thousands of legal professionals and thousands of legal consumers to come with that. And a new bit of research this year, which I cannot share until the report comes out. But it enables us to do some really interesting insight like what are attorneys charging on average by state? If we add in things like practice area, what are attorneys charging per practice area per state? And so we've been able to take this partnership with our customers and turn it back into publicly available resources that we publish as a part of the Legal Trends Report. And since 2016, we've been publishing details like this. But to answer Patrick's question real quick, like how is AI impacting? Well, what we're seeing is we're an industry that's facing rapidly changing technology and rapidly changing client expectations. And it's the balance of those two that's going to be, I think, the real issue. In 2018, we found there was this really vast gulf between what clients expected and what lawyers thought their clients expected. My favorite is the second down from the left, where lawyers thought, oh, clients just want to tell me about their case in email or on the phone. That was like 90% of them. And 70% of clients are like, no, I really want to talk to you face to face about this. So huge gap in expectations. We also, in 2019, in addition to a longitudinal study over 5 years worth of law firm finance data and a secret shopper exercise that reached out to 1,000 law firms, came up with this little fact that 79% of consumers expect a response within 24 hours. And if you are looking to be hired as a lawyer, like that 24-hour cutoff is really important to you. In 2020 and 2021, we did real-time reporting on the impact of the pandemic. But 22, what's the word of mouth? Can they find you online and have people endorse you? And so those changing expectations of clients have become a real thing that we can use like payment, getting paid is fast, right? And the more they leaned into electronic payments, credit cards, debit cards, e-checks, the more bills they sent with that, the faster they got paid. It actually scaled as you leaned into technology. But law firms that went even a step beyond that, right? And didn't just accept credit cards, but actually started leveraging them to enable new business models, things like payment plans or advanced payments into trust, right? We saw that they had a higher realization rate. More of the time that they were recording ended up on the bill. And so they were charging clients more. But then we saw something that was really interesting. Their collection rate also went up. And so not only were they charging more, clients were paying more because they had a lawyer that was enabling them to work with them, even when it came to paying with the bills. On the far right, you see payment plans at a -2. We actually researched this. The reason it's a -2 is because we measure collection rate on a rolling basis over 3 months, and payment plans just go longer than 3 months. So it looks negative here, but what we found is that law firms that were using payment plans actually saw on average a 43% bump in revenue. For solos, it was a 70% bump in revenue. And the average monthly payment, and I always include this stat, was $400 a month, because I think it's evidence of what might be affordable access to legal representation. And so leaning into this actually became a win-win from the perspective, yeah, Bill, but a win for the law firm it was going up. In 2024, we revisited our secret shopper. We hit up 500 random law firms this time with targeted outreach by potential clients. And unfortunately, 78% of our secret shoppers said, no, I would not recommend the firm. Oh, and the reason was lack of response, lack of information. The only one that had a slight amount of promoters, that blue is the top bar, where somebody actually answered the phone. But again, if law firms are leaning into technology, what we see is positive outcomes, both for the client, they found a lawyer, but for the law firm as well. What we found is that law firms that were using 3 key features in our client intake solution, online schedulers, linked to online search ads, so I know where they're coming from, and online intake forms actually saw 51% more client leads and 52% more revenue. And so clients were able to find a lawyer, lawyers were able to find clients. But as we manage this changing client expectations and rapidly changing technology, we hit kind of the crux of what's going on right now. And that is there's this new technology that's been sweeping through every industry, artificial intelligence. So as a part of our 2024 Legal Trends Report, we actually analyzed over 7 million time entries for their automation potential. And what we found is that 74% of these time entries that we saw had really strong automation potential. And if law firms actually leaned in and maximized this automation, that the average law firm would see a potential loss of $27,000 per lawyer annually because of lost billable time. The 3 highest categories that we see here accounted for 66% of all time entries. Documenting and recording information, that's drafting. Getting information, That's talking to clients and research and analyzing data information, the things that lawyers do. So as a part of our analysis coming out just next week, we want to make sure that we are looking back at this 10 years of data-driven analysis and leading into the next step. And this is the sneak preview. I can only say so much, Patrick. We're going to look at 3 different things. First, we're going to take a look at responsible law firm finances, a new lens in which to look at productivity and scalability within law firms. We're going to be measuring the impact of artificial intelligence in legal, both on consumers of legal services and on the industry itself. And we're starting to see some really concrete evidence of financial impact by adopting AI. And the last thing we're going to take a look at is measuring the impact of artificial intelligence on lawyers themselves. If AI can automate things, what does that mean for lawyers who are working on what's left? If we get rid of the easy stuff, right, that we can trust AI with, and all we're left with is the hard stuff, how does a lawyer handle that? And so I think we're going to see some really bold predictions coming out of this, Patrick. Again, I can't say too much. It's next week, guys. It's next week. And so I do want to invite everybody to reserve a copy of the upcoming report today. I've asked Tom to share this link in the chat as well. And we'll just email you a copy when it goes live on Thursday of next week at, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So it'll be there. But the impact is real. It's starting to become more prevalent. And it is not something new, but actually a continuation of something that we've just been tracking for 10 years. This is just the next stage. So I want to thank Tom, Patrick, the entire panel for letting me take some time there. And I look forward to chatting with you all as we get this new report out the door.
Thank you, Joshua. It's fascinating stuff, and I'm looking forward to reading the full report as it comes out. But I say you have whetted our appetite to see what these new stats are, and maybe set the table for the rest of our discussion today. And let me bring you on board. At ARAG, you have a network of 15,000 plus lawyers that you work with, and I'm wondering how AI is helping ARAG lawyers leverage legal services, and what kind of challenges are you facing?
Excellent. Can you see the slides I'm
Yes.
sharing? Okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
sure can.
Thank you so much. So share a little bit about ARAG first. So ARAG, we are a legal insurance company. We've been in business for over 50 years, and I am almost scared to say I have been there for half of those. So 25 years of my career I have spent at ARAG. I have no idea what number employee I was to come in the door. So now, out of curiosity, I may have to go and find out what number I was in the door at ARAG. But very proud to have been in business for that long. We're headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa, and the only thing we do is provide legal insurance, legal services. So try to help people resolve their legal issues. For people who aren't familiar with it, it's much like dental or vision insurance, but our network are attorneys. So people enroll as an employee benefit, they sign up, and then when they experience life's legal issues, they access our network attorneys who help them to resolve those issues, and we pay those attorneys for that service. We have over 15,000 attorneys that we partner with nationwide, as well as an additional 90 that provide telephone legal services to our members. And on average, our attorneys have over 20 years of experience. I always think it's interesting to see the percentage of Fortune 100 and 500 companies that offer legal insurance plans. You can see there over 80% of Fortune 100 companies offer a legal plan, and over 60% of Fortune 500 companies. We're seeing that statistic rise every year. So more and more companies being able to offer legal solutions to their employees for when they experience legal issues. Part of what we do is try to partner with these network attorneys that provide services and get as much information from them as possible. both on how they practice and how we can be a better partner to them. And we do that through an annual survey in addition to other methods of communication with those attorneys. But I did think that this group might find interesting some of the responses and results that we get from that survey and some of the information that attorneys share with us about how their practices are changing and what things that they're doing to try to keep up with the current challenges and the change in expectations that Joshua talked about. We do hear a lot from our network attorneys about this change in customer expectation. We also hear it on the phone from our members. The number one thing that we hear from member expectations is that if those attorneys don't pick up the phone, then they move on to the next attorney on our list. So it's the attorney that picks up the phone is most likely going to be the one that's going to get that client. So Joshua, just want to reinforce what you're seeing there. We hear it here, and we've seen that time frame that a member is willing to wait for an attorney to call them back after they've left a message is getting shorter and shorter. They really are having increased expectations around that. So as far as our network and what they're made up of, you can see that primarily attorneys on our network are in solo and small law firms. And they're supported generally by a fairly small staff. So that is primarily the attorneys that choose to support legal plans and legal insurance. That we was interesting right now and wanted to explore with our network was how attorneys are billing. Partially, I think there is some pressure on attorneys as AI come up with new billing models so that they're able to capture some of that efficiency in the amount of time that they might spend on a legal matter through alternative billing. So if I'm not spending then that model of billing versus billable hour method of billing that would have been in the past. So we inquired from our network on that in this year's survey, and you can see the results here from those network attorneys of what percentage of them are modifying or using different billing models based on the areas of practice that they serve. Not a lot of surprises there in that transactional areas are still the highest on the list that are really relying on and leaning on the flat fee model, and those that are a little more unpredictable in nature, like family law, are still kind of leaning towards the billable. But a higher percentage, I feel like, are moving more to a flat fee model than what we've seen historically. And I do think that with some of the AI models and the things that attorneys are starting to embrace a little bit more, that we may see that percentage continue to increase over time as attorneys try to figure out how to be able to account for and bill for where they are going to spend their time, which I suspect is going to be on more of the complex resolution of legal issues versus the transactional that AI might be able to resolve for them. The other thing that we think is interesting is how our attorneys are utilizing different social medias, either personally and professionally, and whether or not they're utilizing them in their practices, either to promote themselves or to promote their practice or to raise awareness about different legal issues. And seeing that Facebook is still rising to the top of where people are spending their social media time, for me, was a bit of a surprise. I did expect to see some of the other social media channels increase and follow more what consumers are seeing. I think we would see a very flipped model for consumers here on the social media that they use. But I do think sometimes attorneys can be a little harder to adopt some of these types of areas, and we'll say hopefully we'll continue to see attorneys more follow the consumers and where the consumers are spending their time and space to be able to make sure they're aware of their services and that they're available. So just an interesting note. Then we looked at AI adoption among attorneys. this, we're relying more on an ABA model than our attorney survey model, but we did see that our attorney survey followed the ABA model pretty closely, but the ABA model was just a broader swath, and so showed a little higher because they surveyed attorneys that were also from larger firms and not just the solo and small law practitioners that tend to serve the legal insurance and legal plan industry. But I was encouraged to see an increase in AI use among the ABA survey results there, showing that that's up 31% of attorneys saying that they were personally using generative AI at work, and a pretty decent increase there from 27% over last year. And then looking at what kinds of tools that they were using there, with ChatGPT still in the lead, CoCounsel and Lexis there following. But the thing that I thought was interesting was looking at what were the barriers to attorneys that were indicating they either had reluctance around the use of AI, or even resistance to the use of AI. Data privacy and confidentiality, of course, being at the top of that list, with cost, need for better education, and the one I feel like I hear the most about at the bottom of the list, which is the potential for AI hallucinations. I've heard story after story of attorneys that are in court and are looking at briefs or other materials that are being provided by opposing counsel, that when they go to research the cases that are cited or the information that are cited, that they find that it doesn't exist, and that opposing counsel used some kind of AI without vetting the case to make sure that it wasn't a hallucination. And so that's an area that I think, as they're exposed to that, it really does raise the risk, their little risk tolerance or their risk flags, to say, ooh, this is something that makes me nervous about AI. And then the difference in AI adoption based on the size of the law firms, I thought was also interesting. Maybe it to be expected, given that likely the larger law firms are able to invest a little more into the different AI models and being able to fund those, where the slow involved may have a harder time trying to allocate resources towards paying for some of the AI models that might have their guardrails built in that would give them the confidence that they don't have as much risk of things like those hallucinations that make them a little nervous to use them. So, and then the most common uses are the document drafting, web searches, and legal research being the things that attorneys are using them for right now, as the most common uses. But those were the things that I thought were interesting. Very excited to get into the discussion about the other topics, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much, and appreciate that. I love the data that is coming out of this. Kath, let me turn this over to you. And, you know, as part of AM, you have quite a platform of assets for numerous kinds of products. I'll let you discuss that, but I'm wondering, from where you are, how the delivery of legal services is changing for lawyers.
So yeah, it's really just becoming more and more digital and online. So, you know, 8AM is the parent company of LawPay, MyCase, DocketWise, and CaseBureau. And we did a rebrand in August, which I say no one in their right mind would rebrand a company this large. It's incredibly difficult. You know, naming a pet or a human, a baby, is difficult enough, but a company is also super hard. But we did it because we are a platform, and people were thinking of us as disparate products. And so we really wanted a way to let our customers know and utilize our different solutions across the platform. And so it's a, you know, 8AM is sort of, you know, it's a platform for professionals. We get up and get after it early in the morning and think of ourselves as lawyers' partner and platform to get their business and going early in the morning. So it's a fresh, bold name. I happen to love it. But thank you for having me. We're excited to be here. You know, it's at 8AM, we work really hard to think about our customers, our law firms' practice of law and the business of law. And often those two things are very separate, but sometimes they really collide. And technology is a way in which both we can help law firms and lawyers, both in the practice of law and the business of law. I think we're seeing the same numbers and stats generally, as Anne and Joshua shared. We have our own industry report. I'm sure there are lots of those out there, and I think perhaps one of my colleagues can drop it in the chat if people are interested in taking a look. But we're seeing the same trends. We're seeing that roughly 68% of our respondents, we surveyed about 3,000 solo and small firms. About 68% have trouble collecting fees. I think I was surprised that number wasn't closer to 99.9%. I think it's a really hard part of owning a law firm. We see, AI adoption as well, but just sticking on the business of law for a second, it's really challenging to run a business. And being a law firm owner is you're running a business, and you didn't go to law school to run a business, and it's hard to get those skills. And this is an area where technology can really lean in and help you. 61% of our respondents had trouble with their accounting portion of the business. And as we all know, IOLTA trust accounting is super critical to a law firm. 55% have trouble with expense tracking. That's a real concern and a real sort of time suck, for lack of a better description, for a lot of law firms. Keeping track of, going and paying for expenses, going to the court. There's the new executive order on immigration payments, for example. Managing that on top of just being a good lawyer and practicing law well, all of that is really hard. And so technology such as Clio or 8am or all these, other great solutions. We've got a Smart Spend where you have a credit card and you can charge client expenses. And with 2 taps, it goes right to the invoice. You don't have to worry about tracking receipts. You don't have to worry about losing papers in your wallet, or I still carry a briefcase, but maybe not. Most people don't. So, things like that make the business of law a lot easier. And I think Joshua shared some stats too, where, it's hard running a business. And these challenges that law firms face, some of them can be certainly helped with technology that's out there. And along the AI front, certainly we're seeing the same kind of stats. I thought yours were, and both of yours were really enlightening as well. But we're seeing the same trends that people want to lean in. They're a little bit unsure how. We know we do a lot of CLE presentations and education with our clients about what issues to think through. What are the ethical obligations under the model rules of conduct, and making sure that you're meeting those and using AI in a responsible way to meet your clients' needs. Because at the end of the day, that's what our customers are trying to do. They're trying to practice law really well, run a successful business, and meet their end clients' needs. And we think AI is certainly a critical part of that going forward. Of our respondents, 82% that are using AI report efficiency. I think, that number is I feel the same way. I use it daily in my practice. And so does my team. I thought it was interesting, 65% of our respondents using AI report savings of 1 to 5 hours a week, and 12 are up to 6 to 10 hours, which I think is a remarkable amount of time for a profession that relies on how time is so critical in our daily schedules. That efficiency, and then what to do with that savings, I think is a key question, right? And I love the discourse around, how do we think about our practices differently, and as clients. And I hire lots of outside law firms, and I love a flat fee arrangement. I'm in negotiation with I wouldn't call it a negotiation, more discussion, with several of for example, our trademark firm. They do a lot for us, and they're a very valued partner of mine. But it really is helpful to my budget to be able to predict what those monthly costs are going to be. And I'm no different than our customers and clients in that regard. Everybody, especially now, I think, is extremely budget conscious. And so helping our customers help their customers manage their budgets and expectations, I think is really important. And I think, our report certainly has some of the same learnings that I think Joshua shared about how online payments improves your life and your business. For example, you don't have to wait until the beginning of the month to send out invoices. That is a sort of a bit of it feels like an antiquated statement when I say it, but I think it's the practice of most firms. Finish the work, send out that invoice, say, did I do, hopefully I did a good job. Are you happy? And send out that invoice the next day and more quickly pay. It's remarkable. The same thing, I echo what Joshua said about the fee arrangements. We've been doing pay later for a long time, and it's increase access to justice, especially in the family law, is what we see in the family law. Divorce or custody battle or immigration case, sitting as a retainer, the arrangement and clients to get legal that they might not have been able to afford. But we're seeing that 47% of our firms who are offering these fee arrangements, particularly pay later, they are able to take on significantly more cases. And I think Joshua made a similar point. It's like you can take on more kinds of cases, more cases than you might not have been able to otherwise, and help and clients who might not have been able to afford it. So I think, we're seeing the same sort of trends, and it's an exciting time. I think client expectations, sort of a common thread throughout the three of us, is that they are rapidly changing. And I know, Patrick and I talked about it ahead of this web panel about sort of the Amazon effect that we see. We're all consumers, and probably most of us on Amazon, but it's so, we're so used to being able to track our package and know what's happening with the things that we are consuming at every stage of the game. And so I think clients of law firms have the same expectations. They want quick responses. They want to know what's happening with their case. They want to know the status. They want to know all of it all of the time, right? And it's not dissimilar to my own internal legal team. The way one of the things I'm trying to really reduce is how many pings they get throughout the day of, hey, where's this partnership agreement, or where's this, blog post, or whatever it is. And so it's like that context switching, that every time you're pinged about something that is non-substantive, it takes your brain off of the task that you're working on, and then you've got to switch back, and it's really distracting, and it's a way there's some automation there that can really improve that process. So it's an exciting time. Client expectations are changing, and hopefully the billable hour will cease to be such a noose around all of our necks.
Catherine, thank you. And thank you all for those reports. It sets up really, I think, a great opportunity for us to put our minds together around a couple of questions. And I want to ask about AI, and I want to ask you about access to justice. Maybe we'll touch on rule of law as we get through. We have about 10, maybe 15 minutes. So we'll see if we can get through as many of these questions as we can. Let me start here. What do you see? And Joshua and Catherine, I'll start with you there. What do you see for lawyers who are leaning into AI versus those who are resisting or waiting it out of fear? And I'll say at the Washington State Bar, we just finished adopting our technology task force report. And one of the things that was interesting we found in that survey was that of lawyers using AI, only about 9% said they felt they were pretty good at it. That left the whole rest of the bar not feeling like they were very good at it and rather insecure. So my question is, what do you see for those lawyers that lean in, and what do you see for those lawyers that stay out of fear?
I would say to those folks, I would say a couple of things. I would say, give yourself a little grace. It's tricky, and sometimes it's hard to learn new stuff. I would say experiment on your personal life. Plan a trip, find restaurants near museums that you want to go to on your next, like those kinds of ways, I think will sort of supercharge your comfortability with it. I would also read the ABA opinion on Gen AI. Maybe I think one of my colleagues might be able to drop it into the chat, but it's super helpful because it walks through a lot of our ethical obligations around AI, and I think it will get people some comfort. And part of the challenge is like maybe you have an ethical obligation to use technology, right? Like, are you providing reasonable representation to your clients if you're not taking advantage of the resources at your disposal? So, for example, I think, I don't know if my co-panelists are of the same vintage where when I first started practicing law, the partner would say, "Did you check the pocket part?" Which is, that's where the updates were to the law, right? In the actual physical law that we had. And so if you weren't checking the pocket part, you weren't doing your job well. And I think the same thing is true now. If you're not making sure that you don't use technology to find any relevant precedent, maybe you've missed something. Maybe you're not doing your service to your clients. So I think there's a fine line there. And I'm not saying, if you're not using technology or our technology, you're not servicing your clients well, but I think it's something to consider. And so I think the ABA opinion will probably help those folks get some comfort around how to use AI in a responsible and comfortable way.
Joshua, want to add to that?
Yeah, I think Catherine gave a great answer, especially when it came to the practice of law. So I'll jump to the other side, to the business of law. I think as we've talked about with Anne's survey results, there is uncertainty around some of these tools and their applicability into the practice of law. And we see, unfortunately, almost daily news stories right now about lawyers who are using it to draft court submissions and then not reviewing those court submissions for accuracy and getting into trouble, right? And so if you're a law firm that is like, you know what, I'm still worried about it, try it out in a business context rather than a practice context. And that can be something simple like, I have a website. I want to make sure it is readable to someone with a high school education. Gen AI, can you take a look at my website and recommend copy changes for this type of reader? And it can do that. It'll be like, this page is a little wordy. Maybe we shorten the sentence structure, and here's a suggested paragraph, right? And so that's a great use case for you to rely on it in a context where it's not a court submission with those additional ethical requirements that Catherine was talking about. You're in control. You can always reject these things, right? You don't have to use them. And third, it gives you practice using these tools in the context of a back and forth review, which is really what's necessary to get the most out of a lot of generative AI tools. You don't take the first instance, but instead say, okay, what assumptions did I include in my question? What limitations does the tool have around what it's generating? And how do we kind of use that together to edit a best version, not just take what's up on the screen? My favorite exercise is we did that secret shopper exercise twice, and unfortunately, lawyers just didn't provide like the right information the clients were looking for, and so we gave a checklist. And so take that checklist. It's 6 things. Give it to Gen AI. Give it to your law firm details, and just have it write the email response for you. Right? I want to say these 6 things, and I want it written for somebody with a high school education on this type of problem. Show me your best draft, Gen AI, right? And then you can use that as a part of your automated business plan. Somebody clicks contact me form on your website, and this is your follow-up email. So there are lots of different ways to lean in. There are ways that have minimal risk but maximum utility. Grab those first.
There's been this trend with AI. I mean, originally, I think everyone thought AI was a standalone tool like ChatGPT. But as time has progressed, and it's progressed very, very quickly, AI is being bundled and integrated into just about every legal product that's out there. Everybody's got an AI product. And I'm wondering, for those lawyers who don't even know where AI is being included in the products that they use. What advice do you have to them about safely and ethically using those products, starting with something like spell check?
Yeah, first of all, I would say when we have AI embedded in our platform, and we always note it, we have, I wish I had trademarked the little 3 little stars or whatever they are, but we always have that, and you can hover over it and see what's going on there. But I think you've got to review the terms of service on these things, and you are looking for whether or not it uses your input to train the model. And if it does, you cannot put customer or client information or data or anything. I mean, you got to be super careful. I just wouldn't use the tool, frankly. And that is most common with the free tools. So you got to pay a little bit extra to make sure you're not training the model and exposing your data. And then this might sound kind of cheeky, but I would put the terms of service into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it. And then I would use my lawyer brain and take a look at it myself and say, like, is this a good summary? Like, what do I need to know? And I think you should think about it from the standpoint of your end client. Would they be surprised or upset by you using this tool? And I think you need to look at your engagement letter. There's also some guidance in there from the ABA and Opinion 52 about it. But, sometimes you need to make sure you have language in your engagement letter about it, and sometimes you don't. So, but you got to dig in. You got to understand how the tool works. That's also part of our ethical obligations under the model code. So, you got to, unfortunately, and I draft terms of service and I review a lot of them. They're not a super fun experience, but you got to dive in.
And let me move. Oh, do you want to add to that, Joshua? Go ahead.
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, lawyers do have some specialized contractual terms that we just require from a lot of our technology vendors. And so Catherine gave great advice. Don't use the free tool, right? If you're going to be inputting information. The Florida bar ethics opinion on when you need to disclose, I think actually does a really good breakdown of this, right? But I think you should be looking towards legal technology vendors as you look towards the more specialized use cases, especially with confidential data, because quite frankly, they have those contractual terms that you need. They should have transparency around that as well, right? And so you can ask questions and they should have ready answers. And that's not something you can necessarily easily get from commercial or consumer tools. So as we move from spell check to maybe like contract review, like Catherine's doing, or legal drafting, which is what a lot of the law firms out here are doing, right? Look towards those specialized tools from legal technology providers. And the other reason I raise this is, quite frankly, we're a reputation industry, legal technology, right? We can't afford to get it wrong. And so we should be putting your client's information first as a vendor and a provider, and we should be transparent about that. And I think that's the certainty you get from using the groups like you see on this panel.
I want to do one quick lightning round question. So like 10-second answers from each you, a sentence or two. One of the people that I serve with on one of my councils is part of a big firm. In their firm, they prohibit AI from being used across the board for hundreds of layers. You see courts who are banning the use of AI in briefing, and those orders are coming out here and there across the country. 1 or 2 sentences. What's your advice to those firms and those courts?
Can we let Ann go first?
Sure. I think AI won't replace lawyers, but lawyers who use AI will likely replace those who don't. And so I think there's a lot of fear around the use of AI, and I think especially larger firms, because they live and die by the billable hour. And so they want to be able to bill for creating efficiencies isn't exactly a model that's encouraged. But I'm also a little concerned for them if you live and die by the billable hour. your consumers have expectations that are rapidly evolving, and they are going to move on to another lawyer who can do the same work more efficiently, and they're able to get that experience. So I would be nervous. I always think about companies that didn't iterate with the times, and where are they now? And there are several examples of those that resisted the newest form of iteration that have then gone by the wayside. So.
And I'm going to come back to you on billable hours. So hold that for a minute. Joshua and Catherine, 2 sentences.
Go ahead, Josh.
If the client's saying no AI, no AI, right? That's the client's prerogative, and we are a service industry. We should listen to that. If it's not the client saying that, quite frankly, you have a problem, because you have shadow IT happening. That's the term when your employees go out, they get their own tools because you're not providing them. And so AI is already there. You just don't know it and can't kind of make sure it's being used responsibly. So it's there. Bring it out of the shadows.
Catherine.
I think the first one part of that question I think is really interesting about sort of the judiciary. And so I'm not a litigator. I would hate to give, I don't have any advice for the judiciary. They have a lot on their plate, other than I would say, talk to your law clerks, get their opinion, have them play around, get, their really good sense of what's happening with technology that the courts might be able to use. And I think for law firms who are reluctant, I would say, I think you will find companies like me, like GCs like me. I can't hire you. I can't pay for time that I shouldn't be paying for. I just don't have the budget, and I don't have the time. So I think that just the client expectations are changing so fast. My expectation is that you are using it, and also just know that like my team uses it, we use it before we reach out to outside counsel. So if we've got a question that I need to know, what is this employment law in Colombia, my team will do a lot of really good research using AI before we reach out to a Colombian law firm. And so my question is then narrowed like this, and I don't need the 20-hour work product that you might have sent me otherwise. So it's just changing so quickly, and it's going to be really hard if you don't.
Yeah, I'm really curious what tool gives great insight into Colombian law.
Well, Joshua, it's my own secret GPT.
Oh, nice.
I like it. You made your own. And there's this dialogue, this dichotomy maybe that's going on, where AI is saving so much time and making us more efficient and productive. You say, this is a great way to bridge the access to justice gap. Look at all the people we can serve faster, better, cheaper, easier than we ever could before. And then we hear things like, yes, but we're losing billable hours because we're so much efficient. Will you help us weave the path between those two ideas? Where's the sweet spot for lawyers? How do we make the money, do the things, bridge access to justice, use AI?
I think you lean on the AI to be able to help you provide the tools where it can make you the most efficient. So can they help with your intake process, with forms, with being able to get that client through and get you as much information as possible prior to you even having to touch that case. So think about it like almost like the TurboTax model. So, but for intake for a client, and doing it in a way that then the attorney is able to focus their energy where they can make the biggest difference. And then still encouraging the attorney to use AI to be able to provide their service the most efficiently. I think it's going to probably come down to encouraging attorneys to view their model on being able to do more of a volume business than being able to go deep on any one account. If you're able to do volume and do it at flat fee, then you can do that more reasonably. and you're also bridging that access to justice. So being able to serve more people with the time that you have at a more affordable cost. I really think that AI gives the tools that maybe we could have some real solutions to this problem that's been a problem for years. The courts, I think, are going to be some of the first to try to embrace it. They've tried triple LTs, they've tried other things to be able to bridge access to justice. AI, I think, could be the thing that could actually provide the real solution.
And let me just, bridge onto this a minute, because, there's this thing called unauthorized practice of law. That's when, unlicensed people give legal advice. And it's a fine concept in isolation. But Google, ChatGPT, I mean, honestly, we can get whatever legal advice we want out of those kind of tools. And I have to think that this idea of unauthorized practice of law is going to have a sure and certain demise. I'm wondering, from where you sit on top of your corporations, offering platforms to lawyers to use, is the unauthorized practice of law something that we just need to, get over, because access is going to become increasingly easy for everybody with these tools? I'll leave that open to anybody who wants to take that. Anne, if you want to start, go ahead.
Sure, I can give it a shot. The UPL, it kind of reminds me of back when I was first started practicing. The limited scope representation was the hotbed topic that people were like, you can't do limited scope. If you are representing, you're representing the entirety of the client, and the client can't agree to limit you to. Now that's done all of the time, limited scope representation. So I feel like UPL is just the next iteration. The thing that I always think of is, if a chatbot can help somebody avoid eviction, would we stop it because it's not a lawyer? Would we say that that person has the alternative? They either get evicted or they have to see a lawyer? No, I mean, I think everybody thinks common sense access to tools that can help avoid those types of issues makes sense.
Well said.
I like that aspect of it, and I don't know if I had thought about that analogy before, but I do think it's, there's a fine line. There's, in one way, I think that we will come to think of it as like there are law books in the library, right? You can go to the public library and pull down some law books and learn about various topics. And I think this will feel a little bit like that, but certainly obviously more accessible. And so I think that, there's I think we do still need the concept of unauthorized practice of law. And I think that lawyers supervising the use of AI within their organization or firm, but leveraging non-lawyers to help them deliver services to their clients. And so I think there's, if you're exercising your ethical obligations as a supervising attorney, I think that kind of extends to these AI tools as well. And I think that if I were a small or medium-sized law firm, I would be looking at how we leverage AI to have different staffing models. I had a guy named Bob Simon, who's a successful personal injury lawyer out of California, on a panel recently at Kaleidoscope, our user conference. And he's really leaning in that AI has built its own LLM for the firm. But one of the things he talked about was having chatbots that do sort of the initial client intake, and then they have closers. That's what he calls them. It sounds, a little bit like that, Coffee is for Closers movie, but it made a lot of sense. It's like, look, we've got closers offshore who speak English perfectly, and they get on once the AI has done all of the intake. And that, I think it's a perfect example of leveraging different staffing models. And I think being open to that is sort of a key to unlock the value and efficiency with AI.
I only have a few minutes left. In fact, we only have about 2 minutes for this. Then I got to wrap up and get everybody out of here like I promised. But let me turn the topic to the last one. And it's a big question about what's going on in the world right now. The independence of the legal profession, the independence of our court system and judges, and the rule of law are being challenged today in ways that we've never seen before. our lawyers' oath to do things like, support and maintain the Constitution of our state and the U.S. Constitution, and our preamble to our rules of conduct are clear that lawyers have a duty to uphold the Constitution, the independence of the judiciary, the independence of the profession. I'm wondering, what duty you all feel as in the tech industry, in the legal tech industry, to support lawyers in these obligations, and what you are doing to do that. Go ahead, Joshua.
So there's a trend amongst lawyers in legal tech to apologize for being lawyers, or to say, I'm a recovering lawyer. And I don't think that's the case at all. I think we're still officers of the court. We still have the responsibilities that we have voluntarily pledged to take onto ourselves on behalf of our clients, if we're a representative of a company like Catherine, right? Or of our customers. Like, I am a voice of the customer for of these law firms within Clio, and making sure I'm advancing their obligations. And so we do have, I think, a requirement to take a look at what's going on in our legal system, making sure that we understand how that might be impacting the technology choices of lawyers and customers, and supporting that to the best extent we can, right? The right to representation is a part of the U.S. Bill of Rights, right? It is something we know statistically leads to better outcomes, not just for one side, but for all sides. You mentioned landlord and tenant, and right? We know that both tenants and landlords actually have better outcomes when both sides have legal representation. So I think we all need to be stepping up in times of uncertainty, because when things are uncertain, people turn to lawyers, and lawyers are going to be turning to us to help them meet that rising need. So there's no, I think, silence right now. It's things are getting uncertain. We all need to step up and do our part to contribute.
And Catherine, we're out of time, but I want to give you a very quick moment to
Yeah,
respond if you like
I
to.
would say two quick things. Thank you. One is our product DocketWise is a platform for immigration attorneys, and we have been leaning in hard as thought leaders and making sure we're providing great information as soon as it comes out, and education to our friends in the immigration bar. We also as part of this, we we partner with all 50 bars, state bars across the country, and we really value those partnerships. And I would encourage folks, if you're not active in your state bar, it's a great way to address these kinds of issues.
And then access to justice, it's all we do. It's what our process and our company was founded upon, was being able to allow people to assert their legal rights, not just those who can afford it. And so our product, we're constantly iterating to make sure that it includes things, but has as often as for as long as I can recall, we have included immigration, and we have seen an incredible uptick in its use. But looking at all of the other products that might be relevant for people right now, and making sure that they can protect their rights. We've done it every time these different things have come up: reproductive rights, LGBTQ plus rights, and making sure that we are then reviewing our product offering and making sure that there are services there where attorneys can come in, because we know that when members have attorneys represent them, it makes a positive difference.
Thank you. Big thank you to our genius panelists, Joshua Lennon and Casamano Catherine Dawson. We'll see you live at the American Legal Technology Awards, October 15th at Suffolk Law in Boston, Massachusetts, and then at ClioCon the next morning. You can find out more at AmericanLegalTechnology.com. On behalf of the American Legal Technology Awards and my friends and co-founders, Tom Martin and Kat Moon, thank you for joining us. I'm Patrick Pallas. And remember, be the innovator, because we are the people we've been waiting for. Thank you all very much.